And so I am a guest in your beautiful country. And so when I was born to an Irishman. So my father is from Irlanda. And he met my mother in a town in the United States of America called Boston. And they fell in love, and he married my mother, and he became a US citizen. And so myself and my two brothers, I'm the oldest of three boys, we were raised in a military family. And it was not my father, but it was my mother that was a naval officer in the US Navy. Now, the US is a country that is always trying to develop, right? We are trying to become better and better each day. And so when my mother was pregnant with me, in our country, do you think that there was equality between men and women when my mother was born with me? No, there wasn't. So at that time, in our country, we were still backwards. And so at that time, if you were a woman and you were an officer in the United States military, you would have to leave the military to be able to have a child, to raise that child. Because if you were a woman, how could you still be a naval officer and serve? Well, that has changed. So obviously my mother continued to serve, and she had me as a son, and she had two other boys, and she continued to serve until she retired from the military. And then I followed in my mother's footsteps. My father was a teacher, and I followed in my mother's footsteps, and I went to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, and I've been serving as a naval officer for the US Navy for the past 25 years. I married a beautiful woman that was also in the Navy, and she also is a Capitan, and she flies helicopters. And we have two children ourselves. We have Connor and Maeve, a boy and a girl, and they are twins. They are 9 years old. And the only thing that I have a complaint about my children and being in Italy is they love Oshiman too much. You know, they love Napoli, and they love seeing the victorious football team that you have. So congratulations on having the best football team in the world. Yes, it's amazing. So I have, yeah. So I have a question for you. Why is the US Navy in your country? Why are we here? Should we be here? I don't know. Why? You tell me. What does it mean to have an ally? What does it mean to have a friend that will always protect you? What does it mean to have somebody that will always have your back? And so all of us need friends. All of us need allies. All of us need people that will take care of each other. And so I hope that you feel that way about us, because we definitely feel that way about you. And one of the things that I have noticed about being in Italy, and I've been here for 7 months now. I came here in the summer. Italy has the best food. Italy has the best people. Italy has the best activities to do. And you have such unique and amazing history. You know, and so in my occupation, even though I am in the US Navy, I serve as an avvocato. So I am an attorney for the US Navy, for the military. And so we have offices here in Naples, which is our headquarters. We have an office in Sigonella, in Sicily. We have an office in Manama, Bahrain. We have an office in Suda Bay, in Greece. We have an office in London, England. And we have an office in Rota, Spain. In all of those locations, we are guests in other people's countries. And so we learn the customs and the traditions and the languages of those nations. And why do you think we want to be in these nations? And why do you think we want to be such partners and such allies and have such good friends? What is going on in Europe right now? Is it peaceful, or is there conflict? Conflict. And anyone, who in this room, raise your hand, has ever been in a fight? No one has ever been in a fight. No one has ever hit you. I think most people have been hit at some point, correct? I know that I have. And if you're hit and you don't deserve it and you're not expecting it, you may be knocked back. And what if the person that's hitting you is much bigger than you and they have much more strength? That puts you in a tough position, right? And we have seen in Europe not too long ago, if you understand your history, that sometimes people that are bullies are aggressive and they take advantage of those that are weaker. And so I think the Italian people, like the US people, we hate bullies. And we don't want anyone to be bullied. And we stand shoulder to shoulder with Italy and the other NATO alliance to make sure that people are protected and that we will protect each other should that need ever arise. Does that make sense? And so you have NATO that is in, are you familiar with Lago Patria? Yes, so we have the Joint Forces Command that is located there. And then in Capodichino, at the airport, we have a Navy compound there where the Navy has a presence at your bequest, you know. And so what questions do you have for me about what I do, or about the United States, or about the relationship between Italy and the United States? I will open it up to you and I will answer any questions that you may have. Over to you. My time is yours. Yes. Don't be shy. Who is brave? See, what's your question? Do you have one? Nothing. Silencio. See? In this room, yes. Yeah. Yes.
Where do you live?
Where do I live? That's an excellent question. Do you know Aversa? See? So there is a support site in Aversa, in Griziano. And so I live in Griziano, and on the support site in Griziano, there are buildings for the Navy
We
to
have a
live.
question here.
See, I'll be right there.
Okay.
So there are buildings in Griziano, and that is where there are schools, there is a bowling alley, there is a movie theater, there are restaurants. And so right there in Griziano da Aversa is where I live. And I have been there since July, and I will stay there until the summer of 2024. See, excellent question. Yes, where do you live? Naples, the best city in the world, right? Yes, it's amazing. What question do you have? No, simpatico. No? See.
What's your rule?
What is my role? So right now, the question is, what is my role? So in other words, what do I do? Lavoro. So my role is I serve as the commanding officer, so the senior most official for all the lawyers that are in Europe, Africa, in the central areas of responsibility. And so all of the lawyers that help give advice to the military professionals, they work with me and I supervise their performance. Yes, great question. Yes. What do you hope to be when you grow up? Mathematics. Yes, so my wife, Katie is her name. She also studied mathematics, and so we both went to the Naval Academy. I was an engineer, so I studied systems and weapons engineering for my undergraduate, mathematics. I then, through the Navy, was allowed to get a master's in business, and then they sent me to law school to become an avvocato. Yes, see. Did you say you had another question? Yes.
What is your
Un
favorite?
momento.
Senza microfono. What is your favorite part of working for U.S. Navy?
So that was a great question. And so if you didn't hear it, what's your name? Antonio? Oh, it's a strong name, yeah. So Antonio asked me, what is my favorite thing about being in the U.S. Navy? What do you think it is? Do you love travel? Yes. Travel is so wonderful. Do you love meeting new people? Yes. Meeting new people is amazing. Do you think that the food in Italy is better than the food in America? Yes, no question. So that's why the belly comes out, right? And so I love being in Italy. I love the chance to expose my children to a culture and to learn so much. One of the things that is fascinating, so I had a chance to go to Rome. And when I was in Rome, I had a chance to go to the Italian Supreme Court. And I had a chance to learn about the magisterium and the magistrate and your judicial system. And so what happens when you travel is, while your teachers here are amazing, and they are educating you, and they're teaching you to ask questions, and to not believe everything you are told, right? So we listen and we are very respectful, but we should challenge things we are told to make sure that it's the truth. And the more you ask why, the better you will become. And so when I travel, even though I am not in a classroom, I am always asking why. And I'm trying to make the matter, the muscle that's between my ears, stronger each day. And so that's why I love the Navy. The Navy has given me opportunities. It has given me an opportunity to be educated for no money. It has given me an education to always have a job. It has given me an opportunity to lead people. And it's given me an opportunity to bring my family to places where they become better, because they're exposed to cultures that are different than the culture that we grew up in. And so I think that my children, when they go back to the United States, they will be better people because they are part Italian. See? Yeah, but travel is so good. Great question. Antonio, good question, see? Yeah. What is your question, and what's your name? Alfredo, what's your question? I have. So it's a tough question, right? Because the question is, have I ever been in a conflict? And so I served in a unit that was called Special Operations Joint Task Force Operation Inherent Resolve. And so I was assigned to Kuwait, and I was assigned to Iraq, and we helped with the conflict that was going on in the country of Syria. And so that's a conflict that is still going on. There is still Daesh, and there's still ISIS that is fighting. And so the United States with other countries, by, with, and through our partners, try to defeat ISIS. And so that was the last conflict I served in. Yes, yes. And what do you learn when you serve in conflict? That if there's any way that we can use diplomacy to find peace, we always want to do that, right? And so as you get older and you get more mature, you realize that life is precious and it's so important. When you're young, you take risks because you may not understand the consequences of your actions. But as you get older and maybe wiser and more mature, you will realize that some risks are so grave and so dangerous that you'll only take those risks if there's no option. And so hopefully we can get to a point where countries can talk. The whole purpose of the United Nations was to bring countries together to avoid a war like we had with World War II, right? So we created that body. And so hopefully we can live up to the ideals of talking rather than fighting as nations. But yeah, great question. And I hope I'm never in another conflict. Yes. Sometimes if you're very strong as an alliance, strength will prevent people from taking chances because they may assess that taking that chance or taking that action or attacking that weaker country may not be worth it from a strategic perspective. Because ultimately every state is self-interested, right? Nations act in their own self-interest, we should hope. And so a nation, if they suspect that by taking an action will cause them long-term repercussions that are negative and adverse, maybe they won't do that thing. So yes, great question. What else? These are fantastic. Yes? What is your name? Giuseppe? Yeah, so Giuseppe asked a very tough question. And so he asked, what do I think about the current conflict that's going on in Europe? And then what are we as a nation, the United States, what is the United States doing to try and support, Ukraine? And so I think it's very sad anytime there is conflict going on in the world, right? It means there's death. It means that there's destruction. It means that there's history and culture that is being demolished. If you look at the news, you are going to see that there are war crimes being committed, right? There are innocent individuals that are just bystanders that are no longer here because of the atrocities that have been committed. And so the United States is supporting with, a whole bunch of other nations, to include Italy, is supporting the alliance. And we are not in a conflict with Russia, but we are helping Ukraine to defend themselves. And so that is somewhat through financial support, but it's also in some ways through providing military systems and weapons to help them. Does that make sense? Yes. But I think that the situation is terrible, and I hope that we have peace very quickly. Yes. What do you think? Yes. I hope so too. Do you have questions about American culture or about the United States? Yes? What is your question? And what's your name? Andrea. So Andrea's question was, do I think that the United States would like to create a new alliance? I don't know. And one of the things that's important is, as I answer your questions, and your questions are amazing, When I'm giving you answers, it's Brian Ellis's opinion. It's not the U.S.'s opinion, from a policy perspective. That's something that only my Congress and my president could answer. And so it's just what I think. I don't think that we need any new alliance here in Europe. I think we have an alliance, right? We have NATO. And I think it's just a matter of, NATO being strong enough and supporting each other as we do. And so I think that alliance is fine. I think what needs to happen is countries that are taking advantage and exerting their will on others without having discussions, I think that's not proper and that shouldn't happen. If I was to look out in the playground and if I was to see a large kid hit a small kid, I would want to intervene and tell them to stop that. And I would want to help the larger person to understand that why are they doing that? Why are they hurting somebody? And so that is, I think, children and countries are not too different, right? We should never want to see people hurting each other, but sometimes people do that. Yeah, so what do you think? Do you think a new alliance is necessary, or should we just use the alliance we have? Yeah, it's important to think about it though, right? Yeah, because I mean, it's so close to Italy where this fighting is going on. So. Yeah. What else? What else are you thinking? What?
French teacher.
So the question is, what are the things on my chest? And so there are two things on my chest. One of them is a pin, and this pin over here on the right side just indicates that in the position that I serve, I'm in command. And so it means that you are in charge of that unit. And my unit is a shore-based unit of attorneys. And so it's a pitchfork. So it's kind of like a trident. And so that's what you would see for individuals in the US military Navy that are in command of shores. There would be a star if I was in charge of an operational unit. And so if I was in charge of a ship, or a squadron of airplanes, or a submarine, or a SEAL team, or any of our operational units, it would be a star. And when it's worn on the right side of your uniform, that means you're currently in command. When you are finished with command and you're no longer in that position, you would move that pin underneath your ribbons. Each of the ribbons either recognizes a conflict that you have been serving in, or your own individual achievement. And so some of the ribbons are based on my individual accomplishments. Some of the ribbons are based on the teams that I've been part of and the team's accomplishments. And some of them are just based on where I've served and what I've done in those areas. Yes, but great question. Is it easy to teach French to Italians? Did you say you're the French teacher? You are a French teacher. Awesome. Your English is amazing. How is your Italian?
Why?
Well, I am. And so I am in Italian class right now. Yes. So it's a great question. And the question is, why do Americans not learn languages? And so if Italians go to America, they are going to learn English, And I think that it's an exceptionally good criticism. I wish that when I was a child, I had been exposed to languages and I had an opportunity to learn. I know right now that for me to really love and learn about the Italian culture, I have to learn your beautiful language. And so every Tuesday and Thursday, Rosalba teaches myself and 6 other students Italian. And so I'm studying it and I'm learning it, but I'm slow. And the same with my children. We are trying to teach them Italian so that when they're on the soccer field and they're playing, they can get the ball passed to them. But yes, no, it's a good question, and I think it's a good criticism. I think as Americans, we should learn languages much younger, and we should learn more languages. Yes. What else? You guys have amazing questions, so it's brilliant. You have a question? Oh, you sure? Yeah. Yes, see.
Have you ever been scared of dying, or you would be proud of it?
That's a tough question. So the question is, would I be scared or proud of dying? And so when I first started, yes, so I think even today, like in the beginning, when I was younger, I thought I was invincible. And so early in my career, I had an opportunity to jump out of airplanes with a parachute. And I had a chance to jump out of helicopters with ropes. And I had a chance to go scuba diving under the water. And in all of those opportunities, I thought I was invincible and strong and nothing could happen to me. And then as you get older, even in training, when you're not in operations, you know that what we do is a very high risk occupation. And so unfortunately, I have seen people through training and through operations that have not come home to their families. And so as a leader, you always want everybody that you go somewhere with to come back. And the hardest thing you would ever do as a human is to bring somebody home to their family where they're not alive and try to thank their family and their children for their sacrifice. And so for me at this point in my life, as well as when I first started, I would never want to die. But I think that when you are in an organization like the military, they often ask young people, hey, why do you serve? Because in the United States, it's voluntary, right? We're not conscripted. Everybody that chooses to be part of the military in the United States of America is a volunteer. And so when you ask people why they volunteer, it's different reasons, right? For some people, it's to be able to afford to go to college. For other people, it's just to be able to get a job. For other people, it's maybe they want to learn how to fly a helicopter. Some people want to go undersea on submarines. Some people want to be SEALs or Marines. Whatever the reason may be, it's different, you know? But for those people that have been in conflict, when they're asked, you know, why are you willing to die? It's rarely for our country. It's more often for the person that's sitting to your left and your right. Because when you know people and you care about people, you would rather you die than them. And so I think that's what you will find oftentimes in war and in conflict. It's the loyalty that you have to the people that are part of your unit that helps you deal with the sacrifices that you might have to endure. Does that make sense? So yes, but yes. So great question, tough one, yeah. What else? What are you thinking? I'll be right with you.
What's the difference between the Italian and the American army?
Yes, and so the question is, what is the differences between our services, right? So the Italians and the US. And I honestly, I'm not smart enough to know the answer to the question. And so I don't know, I don't know the differences. I know that in the United States military, we have an army, we have an air force, we now have a space force, and within the Navy, we also have the Department of the Marine Corps. And so Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, and Space Force are our service, right? I don't know in the Italian military what your service looks like, but I know you have a Navy, I think you have an Army, you probably have an Air Force, and so they may be very similar. Yeah, but so I just know my own service and what we look like. Yeah, we just go. Good question. Yes?
Here in Italy, Italian team have an American dream, but what do American people think about Italy?
Yeah. Well, in this room, I think there are probably, maybe 100 people? And I think that if you talk to each of you, you will all have a different opinion in terms of what you think about American people. And I think in America, one of our strengths of a nation is we are a nation of immigrants. And so, you know, while the Pilgrims came to America from England to escape, in many ways, religious persecution, there were already native peoples that were in that land, right? There were native peoples that already lived in North America. And so the history of my country is a history of improvement, because the way we treated the native peoples in America was very bad. You know, we took their land away, we brought disease to them, a lot of them died, their traditions and cultures were lost. You know, the way we treated African Americans that came to the shores of America as indentured slaves, those are scars on the fabric of my nation, and those are scars that we have tried to learn from and we've tried to improve. Our country has constantly brought people from other places into it, and when they have come to America and they have become citizens, they've become naturalized, they've made our country stronger. because they bring the traditions from other places. And so in a lot of areas in America, you will have streets that are painted green, white, and red. You will have pizza restaurants, and Americans love pizza, but it's not as good as Naples. You know, and so a lot of America has a fabric that is based on the Italian immigrants that came to our shores looking for work. And today there are a lot of people in America that come to Italy as a dream. This is a place that a lot of Americans dream about coming. And so I think there is a very close affinity and a good close relationship between Americans and what they think of Italy. Yeah? One of the things that I think is surprising is like when you have major sports stages, right? So you think about the World Cup or you think about the Olympics. A lot of Americans are surprised that we didn't see the men's Italian team in the World Cup, because we look at your Serie A and we see how good your teams are. And so then it's like, well, why were they not in the World Cup? And so we're hopeful that, you know, they will be there the next time. But yes, but we love Italy. At least my family and my friends do. Yeah. So, yeah, good question. What else are you thinking? What's on your mind? Yeah? How long do I have to stay in the country? How long can you stay in service? So the depending on your accession source depends on the contract for your service. And so the question was, how long do you stay in the US military in service? And so for me, I was given an opportunity to go to college. And so in 1995, I went to Annapolis, Maryland, where the US Naval Academy is located. And so if you would like to be an officer in the Navy or in the US Marine Corps, one of the ways to become an officer and to get a commission is to go through Annapolis, Maryland. If you wanted to go into the Air Force, you go to the Air Force Academy. And then if you wanted to go into the Army, you could go to West Point. And so those are accession sources. You could also get scholarships to go to other colleges and then become commissioned officers, or you could enlist, right? So there are officers and they're enlisted that compose the military. Depending on how you come into the military, you will either be under an enlistment contract for a period of term, so it could be from 4 years to 7 years. And then for us, if you go into the officer corps, if you become a pilot, for instance, and they put in that training, when you become a pilot, you have a 7-year obligation. For me, I initially started as a surface warfare officer, so I was on ships before being trained as an attorney. And so I had a 5-year commitment from graduating from college to serve in the military. Now, that's the minimum obligation of how long you will serve. If you serve 20 years when I came in the military, at the 20 years of service mark, you then can retire, and for every month for the rest of your life, they will send you a check for 50% of your salary. And so there are very good retirement options of serving in the military because of that. That has changed now. Now there is a blended retirement where it's just a different analysis. And then there is an upper age limit by which you have to leave the service. And so the way it works is if you are continuing to promote, you can continue to serve for longer periods of time. If you don't promote because perhaps your performance wasn't as good as it should be, then you will end up getting out earlier. Does that make sense? Yeah, but for me, I came in 1995, and my wife came in 1993. And so we both could retire if we wanted to. What else? What are you thinking? Yes, what is your question?
You talk about American allies. In these days, which is the most important for America?
What is the most important
For America, the allies.
for our allies? Yeah, so it's a tough question. So if the question was for America, what is our most important ally? And so if you when you become a mother or a father, if somebody were to ask you which is your favorite child, it's tough to answer that question, right? Because they're all different. And so I don't think America has a favorite ally, but I hope that all of our allies know that America will stand with them if they ever need our support, right? And so I think it's kind of like friendships, right? Some friends you can trust and you know that they will be there for you because you've been there for them, and when you're in a down period, you can trust that they're going to support you. And so I think for countries, it's something similar. Now, countries change over time, right? Countries, the complexion of their leadership changes, but hopefully the values of country can stay there even though different administrations come and go. And so, I do hope that, the country that I am from and the country that I love is a country that will always stand for what is right. And sometimes that requires sacrifice. But I think we will always fight for people to be able to be independent and to make their own choices. Yeah, so I don't know that we have a favorite ally, say. What other questions, guys? It's really good. You guys are amazing, very smart. And I'm amazed at how good your English is. Yeah, it's phenomenal. Yes.
How much reliable has to be your friend country? For example, Italy or other country?
What is my favorite country in the world?
No. How much reliable has to be our friend country, as Italy?
I don't.
How much reliable could be a country as an ally? So you have Italy as an ally, but how reliable is it?
How reliable is Italy?
Reliability of the countries that you have as allies.
Well, it depends, right? The challenge with an alliance is you hope that when that alliance is tested, it will work. And so it's back to that same thing that we were talking about earlier. How reliable are your friends? You don't know how reliable somebody is until you have a need to ask for support. And so I really hope that our alliances are not just words. I hope that they're going to be followed by action if action is ever required. Now, one of the ways that you can test the reliability of an alliance is if it's a friendship, when you ask your friend to go to the movies or to go bowling or to play soccer or to do something you enjoy, does your friend support you and go to do that even when they don't really want to? And then do you do the same for them? So one of the things when it comes to military alliances is as states talk about alliances, are the countries investing in those resources that would be required if the alliance was ever tested? So when you look at how money is spent in your own nation, how is that money spent? Where does it go? When taxes are taken away from your parents and from you for working your jobs, where do your taxes go? And that should be something that is pretty transparent to people that pay their money. And so that's something to always think about. And then, as individuals, you always have the opportunity to ask those people that you have put into office to represent you, what they are focused on and what their priorities are. And if you disagree with the focus of the priorities of those people that you've elected, you're a democracy and you get to choose who represents you. It's the strength of democratic nations like Italy. Yeah, it's good question. Yeah, so amazing questions, guys. I really appreciate this. Is quite the audience. I have gone to 3 different schools so far in Naples, and so by far your questions are the best of the ones I have seen, and your language skills are exceptional. So I feel like you guys have already lived in America and you already know. So good for you and good for your teachers. Yes. What other questions might you guys have for me? Yes, what is yours? Pardon? Why did my wife choose that? Yeah, so the question is, why did my wife choose to be a helicopter pilot? And so Katie chose to be a helicopter pilot because when we were going through college, every summer you get to see different professions within the military. And so she had a chance to fly jets, and she didn't enjoy that. What she likes about helicopters is that's one type of plane where you can just hover. You don't always have to be moving. And so in a helicopter, you can stay over a surface and you can look at what's going on. She really enjoyed doing anti-submarine warfare. And so that is a platform where you can, hunt for submarines. And she enjoyed that mission area. And so I think that's why she chose that field. Yeah. It's kind of cool. So we were, I told you that I have two children, Connor and Maeve, that are here with us in Italy. And they are both in 3rd grade, so they turned 9 on April 1st. And so my daughter was dressing up because the children were all able to choose a hero. And so, you know, Maeve got dressed, and I always do the morning routine. So I bring them to their school in the mornings because Kitty is already at work. And when I was bringing Maeve and Connor to school, Maeve was dressed up in a flight suit. And I looked at her and I said, Maeve, like, why are you wearing that costume? It's not Halloween. And Halloween is a US, you know, tradition where everyone dresses up and they're kind of wild for a day. But so Maeve looked at me and I said, you know, why are you dressed up in that outfit and going to school today? And she told me, well, you know, today we're all able to dress up as our hero. And so many of them dressed up like, you know, Superman or Batman or Tarzan, but she wanted to dress up like her mother. And so I do think it's good that when strong women do hard jobs, they can make the future better for the future women that are going to do the same. So she likes being a pilot. She's enjoyed it. And, you know, because of her example, many, many other women are going to probably pursue that as an occupation as well. Yes, good question. Yes, what's your question? I'll be right back there, guys, okay?
Yes. Sorry, Captain, what is your favorite part of your job?
Yeah, so the thing that I like the most, the question was, what's the favorite part of my job? And so I mentioned personally, I love the travel. Personally, I love meeting new cultures. Professionally, I really love the practice of law. And so if you like to read, and you like to write, and you like to talk, and you like to fight for people, if you like to help very senior people make decisions, it teaches you to be logical. It teaches you how to develop facts and to understand what facts are important and what facts are not important. It teaches you how to analyze policy and procedures, and it teaches you how to be an advocate so that you can marshal those facts and apply them to the law or to the policy to help make an informed decision or to help others to make an informed decision. And intellectually, it's very stimulating because you always are learning more and you're learning from other people. Because in the law, there is always somebody that's advocating this position, but at the same time, there may be somebody over here that's advocating something contrary. And so it requires you to oftentimes think in a way that you don't agree so that you can make your own arguments that much stronger. Does that make sense? Yeah, so I like the intellectual rigor. I think it keeps you young. The most important thing for all of you, though, is that I really hope the biggest blessing that you could ever have in life is to find somebody that you love and that loves you, and then that's the personal thing that you should hope for. The professional thing that I hope for all of you is that you can find an occupation that you love as well. And the challenge, if you find an occupation that you truly love, it may make you spend a lot of time away from the people you love. But I do love the law and the practice of it. Yeah. Perhaps you would like to be an avocado one day. Yes? That's awesome. Good. And these guys in the back, and then I'll come to you, okay? Guys, did you have a question?
Have you ever shot in your mission?
Yeah, so the question was, have I ever shot somebody? And so, although they do teach us how to use a weapon and to use that, I've never had to use a weapon against anybody in my entire career. One of the things that's important for you to understand is that as a Judge Advocate General, that's the title that they give us in the Navy. So as a Navy lawyer, what we help individuals do when they're in conflict is we help educate in terms of what the rules of law are, right? And so we believe in international norms, we believe in international law, and there's a body of law that's called the law of armed conflict. And so when you are in conflict, you know, what is a valid target, what can be shot and what cannot? There's always, you know, a desire to avoid unnecessary harm and suffering. And so, you know, that's part of where we help commanders that are in conflict. We may not be doing the shooting, but we're helping those that are deciding what are valid targets. And we're sometimes helping individuals realize what the risk is if they want to take a shot, if that might not be an appropriate time to do so. So good question. Yep. Pardon?
Did you have any injury in war?
So no, I was never injured in the war. I was injured in training. And so, you know, I I had a bad dislocation of my right elbow. And so it's funny, I was, I went to surgery, and when I woke up from the surgery, the Navy doctor said, wiggle your right pinky toe on your foot. And I was like, why is he asking me to wiggle my right pinky toe? It was my arm that was injured. And so what they did is they took a ligament out of my toe to put it into my right elbow so that I would have range of motion in my arm again. And so I did the physical therapy, and it seems to work. But yeah, so the only injury that I have had has been to my elbow, and they did a surgery to fix that. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions, guys? Yes, do you have a question? No? No? Okay. Yeah. Yes, what's your question?
You said you like Italy, you like Naples, food, history, but I was wondering, have you ever experienced any inclusion problem here with your family?
Yeah, so it's a really, it's a great question. And so I do love, and the question is like for Italy, I love the food, I love the travel, I love the people, but the question is from a diversity and an inclusion perspective, how are we in terms of being acceptance of outsiders? And, I told you all that I'm trying to learn the Italian language. And so I think it's very difficult to understand a culture until you know the language and you can understand what people are always saying. And so I may have been in places where people were being discriminatory, but we didn't even know it. And so right now I'm an optimist. And so from my perspective, sometimes ignorance is bliss. And so we have never felt anything but love and inclusion from everywhere we've gone. I think that in Italy, at least everywhere we have traveled, when you have children, especially young children, people are very embracing. It's a very family-focused culture. But a lot of Americans don't look like me. Americans come in all shapes and sizes and colors and genders. And so, I don't know if everybody's experience in Italy has been the same. If I was a person of color, would I be treated differently in the streets of Italy than a white person? I don't know. You know that, not me. I know that in parts of America we have discrimination, and we're trying to get better, and so I would assume that most countries, there is usually prejudice of some sort. Most countries, certain people are raised a certain way, and ideally as we get older and wiser, we try to teach the future to not have the same prejudice that maybe the generations before them had. And so we try to get rid of all the isms, whether it's ageism or sexism. We try to just treat people on the merit, and then we try to give everybody those same opportunities so that they have a shot. But great question. I haven't noticed any discrimination, but I would assume it's there, and I just don't know. What do you think? Do you think that there is discrimination in Italy? No? It's perfect? Yes. So our children right now are in a Department of Defense school. And so they go to school that is very close to where we live, and they can walk or ride their bikes there. And that's just easier for my wife and I because we are both working. And so we don't need to worry about transportation and getting them to and from. I think in an ideal situation, if we both did not have to work, we would want to live in town and send them to a local school. Because to the question earlier, I think they would be much better with their Italian by now if we did that. So, yeah, but great questions. Yeah. So guys, I think the amazing thing for you with your teachers is they give you this exposure to people that have had life experiences that are distinct and different from your own. I wish that when I was your age, I was given this opportunity to meet somebody from Italy that had a unique profession. Because I think that had that happened to me, I probably would have come to Italy a lot younger in my life. And so one of the things that I can let you know is I will provide my information to your teachers, and should you have further questions or should you ever want to come to Capodichino to visit our base and see who we are and what we do, if you ever want to come and visit the courtroom and see the attorneys that practice there, you would always be welcome there, and you'd be my guest to come and see those activities.
So you organize school visits in Capodichino, right?
I could help you, yes. We have Teresa is our lead who does all of our outreach for Naval Support Activity Naples. And so I can put you in contact with her to help you with the visits. Yes. Yes, that would be fun. Yeah. Question? Yeah? Excuse me, guys. Thanks.
Okay. When you were at school, when you were a teenager like them, which was your favorite subject? And which are the subjects you would have liked to study and you didn't?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's really, you can tell that I'm getting older because my memory is getting bad in terms of what my favorite subjects were. I don't think that it was the subject that made me love it. I think it was the different teachers. And so there are certain teachers that stand out in my mind of having inspired a love for that material. And so, you know, for me, I really enjoyed like history. I really enjoyed learning about the arts. I really enjoyed physical education because we had a chance to go outside and play sports. But, you know, I think I was naturally good at mathematics and with sciences. And so even though I think my love was always art and English and history, when I went to college, I studied engineering. And then it was only later in life that I came back to the English and to the arts when I studied law. And so my background is kind of different in that I very much was numbers and mathematics and science and an engineer who then later in life became a lawyer and fell in love with the written word. First, 3 degrees, yes. So my first degree was engineering, my second degree was business, and my third degree was the law. Yeah, and and all of that was paid for by the U.S., by the military. And so one of the benefits of service in my country is that your education will be paid for. And so they really value education. Yes, thank you. Yeah. What other things are on your mind? Yes.
How do you get up in the military hierarchy?
Okay, good question. Yeah. So the question is kind of how do you promote? How do you go up in the military hierarchy? And so the way that you go up in the hierarchy is kind of like, let me ask you a question. How do you get onto a Serie A team? What do you think? See, like, how do you become a Serie A football player? You've got to be good, right? So you've got to be really good. Do you think that you automatically get to become Oshiman? Or do you think Oshiman spent a lot of time running and working out and training and learning? And so for us, it's a very, it's a system that when you're very young, they teach you and they give you opportunities for training and education. And then when you've gotten the education and training, they give you an opportunity to apply yourself. And there's nothing that prevents you from raising your hand and asking for more education and for more opportunity. And so, you know, there are then boards that meet. And so after so many years, each year you're getting an evaluation where somebody is writing what your strengths and weaknesses are. And then in Millington, Tennessee, which is our headquarters for human resource management, there will be a board of people that are senior, and they will look at all of the paper in your record, and they will decide who are the best, and they will promote those people. And so think of it as a pyramid, where at the very top of the pyramid, it's a small number of people and a whole lot of people at the bottom. And so just over time, the pyramid gets smaller. And that's how our promotion system works. Yeah, but it's based on performance and aptitude and just, you know, raising your hand and trying to show what you can do. Good question, yeah. Yes?
What do you think about the use of weapons in America?
Yeah, that's a tough question, right? So actually it's an easy answer, but a tough question. And so what do I think about the use of weapons in America? And so the challenge with our nation is that we have a constitution. And our constitution is one of the best documents that's ever been created. And then there's a Bill of Rights that's associated with our constitution. And so the constitution creates our government. 3 separate but equal branches of government. So you have a legislature that creates the laws, you have a judiciary that interprets the laws, and then you have the president or the executive that helps to enforce the laws. And then in the Bill of Rights, it enshrines certain powers to all citizens that are part of our country. One of those Bill of Rights is the Second Amendment. And in that Second Amendment, it says that individuals in the United States have the right to bear arms. And so that has been contested in the courts because local governments have tried to enforce regulations on individuals being able to have weapons in America. And the Supreme Court has been asked to interpret that. And so right now in our country, it is very easy for any US citizen to be able to get a weapon. And so I think that's an area where throughout our country, people are very sad because you see shootings, you see a lot of deaths, you see a lot even with children. And so I think it's something where as a nation, there's gonna be a reckoning and we need people to mobilize and we may need to consider how do we change the Bill of Rights and have an amendment. If you look at the history of America, there was a time when alcohol was prohibited. It was called the Prohibition era. And you may have heard of a guy by the name of Al Capone. Have you guys heard of Al Capone? And so Al Capone actually had an Italian background and he was part of the mob in Chicago. And so when we had an amendment that prohibited the use of alcohol in our country, it was illegal. Al Capone made some of his money based on allowing people to get alcohol, beer, wine, whatever. And so it is possible to have a constitutional amendment that is then revoked and changed by the will of the people. And so the Constitution is a great document and it very clearly explains how you can change the Constitution. And so that may be what happens. But I personally, as Brian Ellis, I don't have any weapons. My wife and I, we would never have a weapon in our home. And so we just wish that it was harder for people to get weapons. And I wish that the only people that had weapons were those people that had a need to have them for their job. But that's just not how our country is right now. Does that answer your question? Yeah, it's sad. What else? What else are you thinking? You guys have amazing questions and you have such great insight into the United States. You know, I really hope that if you haven't had the chance to visit, that you do get the chance. You know, it'd be wonderful. Yes? So how was this? Was this helpful to you guys? Was this a nice, like, a little bit of discussion? Yes. So I think if there are no other questions from you guys, you know, I'll give you your time back. I think I'm going to come back here at 4 p.m. today. So I will be back at 4 p.m. today. But I think, you know, what I'd like to end by telling you is just how honored and how lucky I feel to be a guest in your country. I mean, Italy is just the crown jewel in terms of nations. Your history continues to amaze me. Your food is tremendous. But the most important attribute that you have as a nation is the people, right? You are part of such a loving people that really cares. And so I hope that as you start to take over your own government, as you start to go into college or go and start to work, I hope that you continue to make Italy the best country in the world. You know, and I'm very appreciative that you're allowing my family and I to be a part of it and just to see how excellent Italy is. I do hope that some of you may decide to come and visit America. I love America. I think that one of the things that America has that is tremendous is opportunity. And so not all countries always have opportunity. And so one of the things that brought my father from Ireland to emigrate to America, besides his love for my mother, was the fact that it was easy for him to get a job and to improve his social stature by going to America. And so, you know, I hope that all of you have an opportunity to get educated and find a profession that you love. And more importantly, I hope that when you are educated and you find a profession you love, you're able to be treated fairly and get a job that pays you what you deserve once you have that education, because that's not always possible. In terms of being able to show you what we do and who we are, if your teachers ever want to bring some of you to the campus or to our installation, I'd love to show you around our courtroom and just introduce you to some of the junior attorneys that work with me. Is this helpful to you? Yes? Well, I really appreciated your time. I appreciated your questions. You made me think, which I love to do. And most importantly, I just appreciate how much heart and how much love you guys have. You guys treat each other with such respect. I love that when people ask questions, that you respect those questions and you listen to those answers. And so you're just a very professional group of people, so thank you very much. How about a round of applause for yourselves? Yeah.
Question.
Oh,
From we take pictures?
Yes? Yes, the teacher wanted to know if we can have photos, and so I'd love a photo if you guys want a photo. Yeah?
Okay. Maybe we can have a photo with everybody to stand here and
Sure.
take from there.
Okay. Sure. Do we have a Napoli flag?